Elena Sterling had this specific vibe about her that you just couldn't ignore. It was the kind of presence that made me think, okay, even if we crash and burn, even if this whole thing falls apart, I wouldn't regret a single second of making her my first real love. So I went for it. I chased after her with everything I had. Eventually, she saw how serious I was and agreed to give us a shot. But she had 3 strict rules right out of the gate. We could date, sure, but marriage was off the table, and the second we graduated college, we had to break up. I said yes without hesitation. We spent 3 years together, living out what felt like a movie script of a romance. But when graduation day actually came, I was the one who brought up the end of the deal. She tried to back out. I was shocked. I thought we had an agreement. I thought the plan was to split once we had our diplomas. I remember that day vividly. By the time the sun went down, our conversation had spiraled into a disaster. Elena, who always walked around with so much confidence, hung her head and let out this bitter, self-mocking laugh. "Mark, you better hope we never run into each other again." From that moment on, I did everything I could to stay out of her way. But the world is smaller than you think, and sometimes life just drags 2 people back into the same orbit whether they like it or not. Back in school, Elena and I had this unspoken understanding. We were a couple on campus, but that was it. The second a semester ended and holidays or breaks began, we went back to our separate lives and went total radio silent. During those breaks, she went back to being the high-profile Ms. Sterling of New York, and I went back to just being Mark, a regular guy from Philadelphia. No texts, no calls, no asking what the other person was up to. It was like we were single again. I figured this weird arrangement would just carry us to the finish line until we graduated and split for good. But the summer after sophomore year felt like it dragged on forever. 80 days of nothing. Before we left the dorms, Elena had asked me, "Mark, are you going to miss me?" I hugged her and told her the truth, that I'd miss her like crazy. She kissed me, but she didn't say anything hopeful like, "Text me then." I always liked that logical side of her. She came from a powerful family, and her future husband was definitely going to be picked from that same circle. We both knew there wasn't a long game for us. The only reason we were together was probably just to check the college romance box, and I just happened to fit the description of what she liked. At school, she was my girlfriend. Off campus, when she was Miss Sterling, she didn't want me messing up her life. I respected that. I played my role perfectly and never crossed the line. I never thought Elena would be the one to break her own rule. That summer was just too long. She texted me saying she was coming back to campus a whole month early. I was shocked when I saw the notification and messaged back, asking why she was back so soon, and if she missed me. She never answered that text. But after that, whenever a long break came up, Elena would ask if I wanted to travel. Most of the time, I said yes. We went all over the place, watching stars in the desert and sunsets on islands in the middle of nowhere. I get distracted by scenery easily, so I was always surprised when she'd suddenly kiss me. She liked to hold my face and pull me down to her level. It was always intense. When it came to the physical stuff, Elena liked being in charge, and I was usually more passive. But every time we got close to going all the way, I'd kill the mood and stop it. Her eyes would be hazy, her breathing heavy. She wouldn't say anything, just raise an eyebrow at me, asking without words what the problem was. My answer was always the same. I don't want to. She'd be sweating, clearly frustrated, wanting more. But the second I said stop, she would get a grip, go to the bathroom to splash cold water on her face, and come back just to cuddle. After I turned her down enough times, she seemed to get the message. Whenever things got too hot, she'd get up and head to the bathroom before I even had to open my mouth. There was one exception. That day, she saw a text on my phone from a friend back home and asked who it was. I told her the truth. Just a friend from Philly. She didn't say much then, but that night she was aggressive. I tried to push her away, but she pinned my wrists above my head and wouldn't stop. I dodged her kiss and told her firmly that I didn't want to. She demanded to know why, asking if it was because of the girl in Philly. For someone with so much pride, her jealousy was messy and wild. I never said the real reason out loud, but she must have known. The reason I wouldn't take that last step was because I knew she wasn't going to be there in the end. I didn't want to get in too deep. Elena was considerate. She understood where I was coming from and never forced me. It's just that after that, every time we were close, she teased me constantly, like she was competing with someone. Second semester of junior year came around. The breakup deadline was looming. The idea of us ending made me feel sick, so to save myself the pain later, I started mentally checking out. That year, Elena planned a trip to England for us. On our second day in Kent, while I was still sleeping off the jet lag, a bunch of people barged into our room. They shoved me into a suit, groomed me, and marched me to a carriage waiting outside. I have no clue when she set this up. We had a wedding in Canterbury Cathedral with just a priest. No guests. Just us. It wasn't a legal wedding. It meant nothing on paper. It wasn't until we were exchanging rings that I realized why she had asked for a ring for her birthday that year. It was so I'd have one to give her right then. It was a fake wedding. We both knew that. But that night, when Elena was breathless and about to run to the bathroom to cool off, I stopped her. I pushed her onto the bed and kissed her for real. She was shaking and calling my name. I joked that it was our wedding night, telling her not to ruin it. I didn't care about the rules anymore. For that one day, I told myself I was her husband. I let go. Just once. I thought it would be a one-time thing, but it happened a lot after that. Once you break a rule, you can't really enforce it anymore. You just keep breaking it, retreating further back. We both lost control. There were no breaks. I told myself to treat it like a final hurrah before the clock ran out. A little bit of madness to make the memories worth it. I wasn't sure when she would bring up the breakup. Our deal was just to date, not marry, and end it at graduation. We never picked a specific calendar date. I waited anxiously, but she stayed silent. My flight back to Philly was already booked. I couldn't drag it out. We needed a clean break. I asked her to dinner at a quiet spot near campus and put it on the table. I had rehearsed how she would take it. I thought she'd be cool, collected, accept it with style, and say goodbye gracefully. I never expected her to look at me quietly and just say, no. I stared at her blankly. No to what? She looked right into my eyes. Mark, I don't want to break up. My brain short-circuited. Elena wasn't the type to go back on a promise. She always did what she said she would. That's why I was so sure this was a done deal. I never expected her to change the plan. When did that happen? I hadn't seen any signs. I started to panic. I had never pictured a future with her because I trained myself not to. Breaking up after graduation was supposed to be the perfect ending. Her changing the script threw me off completely. I couldn't speak. I just stared at her. Her tone got urgent. I know what you're scared of, Mark. Give me 5 years. In 5 years, I promise no one in my family will stop us. Then we'll have a real wedding with friends and family, a real license. We'll tell the world we belong together. Mark, what do you say? I looked away, feeling guilty. I forced the words out. But we agreed, right? Break up at graduation. She looked shocked. What? It came down to this. If I wasn't blunt, it would just cause more problems. I took a breath and said it. I want to break up. Her look sharpened like a knife. She leaned on the table, staring me down, radiating this scary intensity. Why? The question felt empty, like she wasn't asking, just waiting for me to say it. The pressure was suffocating. I wanted to rip the bandage off, so I let it all out. Because we don't fit. I don't have big dreams. I just want a simple life, good food, and happiness. I don't want to go through hell because our families are different. I don't want to deal with complicated social circles. If I married you, that's all my life would be. So the truth is, I never once thought about a future with you. My voice faded at the end. I realized that compared to her, I was the cruel one. She was planning a life. I was calculating pros and cons. She was ready to fight for me, and I had my bags packed. I stood up, panicked. I've said what I need to say. I'm leaving. Take care. I turned to go. A hand grabbed my arm. Hard. I turned back. Elena was still sitting, looking up at me. She usually looked so proud, but now she looked like she'd been left out in the rain, shivering. She asked, "If you never thought about a future, why did you sleep with me?" I choked. I shook her hand off and pretended not to care. "I didn't know that meant so much to you. It's not a big deal to me." She flinched like I'd slapped her, her eyes looking broken. Then she gave this sad, self-deprecating smile, let go, and stood up. She wasn't tall, but she felt huge in that moment, suffocating me. She stood straight, head high, staring at me. "Mark, you better pray we never see each other again. Otherwise, I don't know what I might do." I kept a straight face, but my hands were sweating. I felt regret instantly. I never should have gotten involved. I ran out of that restaurant and went back to Philly without looking back. Even when I traveled later, I avoided New York like the plague. I thought I'd never see Elena Sterling again. But life has a funny way of messing with you. My cousin was marrying into a rich family and invited me. The wedding was in NYC. I refused immediately. But the bride's family screened the guest list and only approved me from my cousin's side. Not even his parents were allowed. My aunt came to my house and begged me to go, so her son would have at least one family member there for support. I had to say yes. We stayed at a luxury hotel. My cousin David was supposed to pick up the bride the next day. The night before, some guy sent David a video on WhatsApp. It was the bride-to-be, partying at a villa 20 miles away. In the video, a guy was kissing her right on the mouth. David calmly turned off his phone, gathered me and the groomsmen, and said, "Let's go. We're crashing the party." I never thought I'd see Elena again. NYC is huge. What were the odds? 4 years later, on my first trip back, I run into her. But fate is twisted. David went there to make a point. He slapped the guy in the video across the face. The guy looked to the bride for help, but she just smirked. The bride was Chloe Vance. Before they got married, David and Chloe had rules. She could flirt till he would ignore it, but if anyone disrespected him, she couldn't stop him from retaliating. David threw the guy out. Chloe acted like nothing happened, casually closed the door, hugged David, and told him to go say hi to Elena. David fixed his messy clothes and agreed. Chloe walked off to a table of well-dressed, quiet people. David whispered to us, "See that table? Everyone is fair game, except the one in the middle." I looked. I froze. It was her. Elena. She looked older, more composed, graceful. One of the groomsmen, Brad, asked why she was off limits. David told him she was out of their league and to not even think about it unless he wanted trouble. Brad backed off. I tried to bail, saying I wasn't good at socializing. "Are you crazy?" David said, dragging me. "You need to meet high-quality women." He bulldozed me, so I followed. David greeted her respectfully. "Annie." Elena looked up, a faint smile on her face. A friend next to her corrected David, saying he should call her Ms. Sterling. Brad tried to smooth it over, apologizing and calling her Ms. Sterling. David then dropped the bomb. "Elena, this is my cousin, Mark." He stepped aside, leaving me exposed. Everyone looked at me. Her gaze was piercing. I forced a smile. "Hello, Ms. Sterling." Her mouth was a tight line. She stared at me, cold as ice. We both acted like strangers. No one noticed the tension. David kept introducing people. The mood was fine until Elena suddenly said, "Mark?" She said my name out of nowhere. The whole area went quiet. My heart slammed against my ribs. I looked at her. She was sitting on the sofa, looking up at me, unreadable. "Long time no see." Silence. David looked surprised. "Bro, you know Elena?" I had to answer. "We went to college together." Elena tensed. She stood up slowly, walking toward me like a storm cloud. She stopped in front of me and asked, mocking herself, "So I don't even count as an ex-girlfriend?" I was speechless. She lost patience, looked at Chloe and said, "Party's over." Chloe kicked everyone out instantly. Elena grabbed my wrist. "I'll give you a ride." I couldn't pull away. She led me to her car. We drove in silence. The AC was on. The trip should have been short, but I realized she was just driving in circles around the city. I didn't say anything. Finally, I said, "Elena, I'm tired." She ignored me for a minute, then turned around. Half an hour later, we were at the hotel. I got out. "Mark!" she called. I turned. She was gripping the steering wheel, staring at me. I stayed silent and cold. She looked down, hiding her eyes. "Good night," she said. "Yeah," I replied, and walked away fast. Back in the room, David called, asking about us. I cut him off, saying there was nothing. He warned me about her family, saying she had a fiancé named Julian Park, a rich heir. He told me not to ruin my life. I told him I knew. I hung up and sat there, zoning out. I couldn't stop thinking about her. I gave myself 5 minutes to remember her, then forced myself to bury those thoughts again. The wedding reception was awful. Mr. Vance ran the show. David followed him around like a puppy, getting scolded for everything. Mr. Vance looked down on all of us. At one point, David messed up a guest's name, and Mr. Vance dragged him into a private room to yell at him. Chloe didn't help. The groomsmen were scared. I couldn't take it. David was like a brother to me. I walked into the room. Mr. Vance was furious. "Who let you in? Get out." I tried to be polite, saying guests were waiting. He sneered at me. "So this is your family? Typical." Then a knock on the door. Elena walked in. She ignored everyone and looked at me. "I've been looking for you." Mr. Vance's attitude flipped instantly. "Ms. Sterling, you know David's cousin." David jumped in. "They went to college together." Mr. Vance laughed, suddenly friendly. "David, you should be more like your cousin. He's sharp." It was absurd. Because of Elena, the wedding went smoothly. She sat next to me and asked if I was going back to Philly. I said yes, flight was tomorrow. She offered to show me around NYC. I refused coldly. She asked about my flight time and offered a ride. I snapped. "I have a girlfriend. We're talking about marriage." She froze. I felt cruel. David begged me to stay a few days to help him with the Vances. I refused him too, telling him he chose this life. I was harsh because I was scared. Seeing Elena hurt when I lied about the girlfriend made my heart ache. I had to leave. On the way to the airport, I got into a car accident. The car spun, my leg got crushed, head bleeding. I woke up in the hospital with Elena by my side. She looked wrecked. The doctor said I had a concussion and a fractured tibia. No surgery needed if I rested, but I couldn't walk. I told Elena to leave. She refused. I said I'd hire a nurse. She said she didn't trust them. I said I'd call David. She reminded me he was on his honeymoon. Then she asked, "What about your girlfriend? You almost died and you haven't called her?" I looked at her. She stared back. "Mark, I know you're lying." I had nothing. I closed my eyes. She insisted on taking me to her apartment. I stayed in her room. She hovered over me constantly. I pretended to sleep, hoping she'd leave. Instead, she sat on the bed and traced my face with her fingers. I felt her breath on my lips. My heart hammered. She kissed me. I pushed her away, angry. "Is this because I broke up with you? Are you trying to win just to dump me?" She got angry too. "Mark, don't piss me off." I started giving her the cold shoulder, building a wall. She played along, pushing my boundaries just enough to keep things tense. Weeks later, her brother Leo showed up while she was out. He sat down and stared at me. I wanted to see the guy who bewitched my sister. He asked when I'd be better. I said, soon. He invited me to his birthday party. I said no. Then he dropped the act. "Aren't you curious about Julian?" I said no. "Aren't you curious how I know your name?" He told me the truth. Elena broke off her engagement to Julian 4 years ago. She worked like crazy to gain power in the family so she could make her own choices. She had been tracking me the whole time. She knew I quit my reporter job to sell fruit because I felt bad for farmers. She knew I started a wholesale business, lost money, paid the farmers anyway, and then succeeded with an app. She knew everything. "My mom sent me," Leo said. "We check everyone who enters the family. But my parents actually like you." He told me Elena had been single for 4 years. He invited me to his birthday party. I said yes. I realized she had kept her side of the 5-year promise. I couldn't be a coward. When Elena came home, I told her I wasn't going to the party. She looked sad, but accepted it. The next day, getting my cast off, I pretended I was leaving. I walked in on her drying her hair in the bathroom. She pulled me in and asked if I was really leaving. She kissed my neck. I told her, "I'm not leaving. I'll wait for you." She hugged me tight. I went to the party to meet her mom. Mrs. Sterling was there, looking regal. I walked up to her. "Mrs. Sterling, I'm Mark. May I have your permission to love your daughter?" She nodded. "You may." It was about respect. Leo and Elena were on stage. Suddenly, Julian, the ex-fiancé, ran up and hugged Elena, crying. Leo tried to pull him off. Elena stood there awkwardly, not hugging back. She saw me watching. She immediately pushed Julian away. He saw me and ran to Leo instead. Elena rushed over to me. "He's just like a brother to me." I felt bad about the engagement thing, so I didn't push him right away. I sat her down. I grabbed her blazer and pulled her close. I reached for the necklace she was hiding. It was my ring, the one I gave back. She'd been wearing it. I took it off the chain and put it on my finger. "Let's leave," I said. "I want to be alone with you. I've missed you so much." Later, I asked her, if I hadn't come to New York, would we have just missed each other forever? She held me tight. "Mark, didn't you notice? The thing I said would take 5 years, I did in 4. I was scared you'd forget me, so I hurried. I was coming to find you. We were never going to miss each other, because I will always run straight to you."